have only two Voice of Resurgence, splitting them with Fencing Ace. Most people have eschewed Fencing Ace entirely. He also has a Celestia Charm split with one Celestia Charm to split with the one Simic Charm. Most people are running the two of that.
And he also does not have the Silverblade Paladin, which we saw earlier.
Right, Silverblade Paladin, another sort of not really equipment, but or enchantment, but another pseudo enchanted creature gains double strike.
And Caleb Durward, we had on camera earlier today. He is playing Jund, a very traditional version of Jund, which we found, Cedric and I found odd, given Caleb's proclivity to play Brews. He likes his Brews, and this is about as normal as it gets right now.
Absolutely.
In Standard.
So both of these players are going to accelerate their mana. Daniel Jackson had a turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim. Caleb had a turn 2 Farseek. And Daniel, his follow-up is Geist of Saint Traft.
That Geist.
Caleb's going to have Huntmaster of the Fells on turn 3, usually pretty good against Geist of Saint Traft, at least traditionally, but in this deck, with so many ways to suit up the Geist, that's no sure thing.
What do you think here? Spectral Flight, just take to the air?
Spectral Flight would be ideal for Daniel, because even Unflinching Courage, it can be blocked. We are probably going to see Rancor and something else here.
You could just go with a Rancor and an Ethereal Armor to get the
Does he have
a lot of
Ethereal
first
Armor?
strike.
Doesn't look like he has Ethereal Armor. It looks to me like he has Loxodon Smiter as the follow-up. So in comes Geist of Saint Traft. Most people are fairly used to the Geist of Saint Traft, the 2/2 hexproof creature that creates another guy. I don't know exactly how blocks were declared here, but I bet Caleb only blocked with the Wolf token.
Yeah.
And then Celestia Charm made it a 4/4, allowing him to deal 4 damage with the Geist and 4 damage with the Angel.
Caleb really needed to double block there to ensure that the Geist would die.
Didn't want to give up the Huntmaster.
And instead, he's just going to swing with the 2/2 and follow up with what, another Huntmaster?
Another Huntmaster.
Not the worst, but
luckily for him, Daniel does not have another enchantment in his hand. Of course, there's so many in the deck. Daniel may very well top deck another. There's Caleb.
And maybe that mistake last turn, Caleb is now going to double block here.
It's possible. Daniel top decks a Invisible Stalker. Not particularly good when you don't have enough pairs of pants to put on everything. Only one pair of pants for Daniel Jackson, the Lonely Rancor.
He's invisible. Why does he need pants? Why is he wearing clothes?
Why
if he just takes all his clothes off, he'd be invisible.
You would think that with all these enchantments hanging off of him, like some auras would be around him and you would see him and be able to block him. That's just the flavor drafter in me speaking. In the meantime, Daniel does have a 4/2 Trampler hexproof Geist of Saint Traft. He has Loxodon Smiter and Invisible Stalker and a land in his hand, deciding how he wants to proceed.
He's thinking too much here, I think. So now I think Caleb's just going to block with the Wolf again. Because Daniel thought about that so much that he knows that there's nothing going on. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
If he had just gotten in there immediately, I think Caleb might have had to respect another pump spell. Yeah.
Might have had to respect another Celestia Charm. I think you're right. Very underrated part of the game being not easy to read. Caleb is another person who's very good at that.
But all that damage from trampling, from the Angel, Caleb's gone down to 10 life.
But Bonfire of the Damned is a hell of a magic card. And that is right off the top to take out the 6/4 Trampling, Loxodon Smiter, and the Mana Dork. Both Huntmasters enter the red zone for Daniel Jackson.
And that Bonfire of the Damned, we saw Caleb do this earlier. I think he had running bonfires in an earlier match to really take it.
Well, you can't miracle it if you don't draw it.
Yeah.
And Caleb's got it in his deck, so he's going to be able to draw it. In the meantime, Daniel's got that 3/1 Invisible Stalker. That's going to be able to be a 5/3 next turn after Unflinching Courage off the top. Still difficult to race.
And on the back foot, Daniel blocks one of the Huntmasters with his Invisible Stalker.
Unfortunately, he had to block there because he's at 8, he's getting attacked for 4, and if he doesn't play a spell, neither is Caleb.
Yep.
Because Caleb's going to just flip those Huntmasters and deal him 4 more for the final. But the alternative's not too much better. Rakdos Key Rune into Garruk Primal Hunter into a very shiny token.
Yep.
And
into a scoop.
Yep. And Daniel Jackson, too much of one thing, not enough of another. Had a good start.
He did.
With the Celestia Charm being able to keep his Geist on the table, but was not able to keep the gas pedal down.
That bonfire. Oh, such a good spell.
It's a very powerful magic card. Caleb though has a lot of things that he could have top decked there to be able to kill that Mizium Mortars Dreadboard. He didn't need to kill both creatures. He only really needed to kill the one. So, you know, if you have a 6/4 that doesn't really have any protection on it, I mean, there's not too many. The options are varied. Could have drawn Liliana, could have drawn a Dreadbore. There were lots of things he could have done. But in any case, he does win game 1 of this match, and we're going to move to sideboards.
So Daniel Jackson, he lost that one. What does he need to do to get back in this in game 2?
Well, the Bant Hexproof versus Jund matchup is an interesting one because Jund can either be a big dog or a big favorite, depending on the cards that they're running. It depends on if you come into the tournament expecting Bant Hexproof, then you can set your deck up very well for it. And that is what Caleb has done. He has 2 main deck Liliana of the Veils. He has 2 main deck Mizium Mortars, and he has 3 main deck Bonfire of the Damned. These are all very powerful spells against Bant Hexproof.
That's 7 spells that deal with the traditionally undealable invisible stalker.
A lot of Jund decks had been issuing Lilianas, cutting down on their bonfires. I've seen decks that ran 0 Mizium Mortars as recently as 2 weeks ago, choosing more controlling options, more Planeswalkers, a 4th Olivia, things like that, as well as more targeted removal like Putrefy or Abrupt Decay, of which he has 2 each, but even more targeted elimination like that.
Caleb's also got a Singleton Barter in Blood in his sideboard.
That's a really powerful card. Absolutely relevant. Barter in Blood, each player sacrificing 2 creatures, uncommon from Avacyn Restore. Going to be very a good card to come in here. I would also expect the Duresses to come in here, possibly, to be able to snag errant Rancors, especially, after they come back to the hand. The rest of Caleb's sideboard, I'm not sure how relevant it's going to be. Things like Pillar of Flame, very good against Bant Hexproof, surprisingly, because this deck still does run Voice of Resurgence, this deck still does run Mana Dudes, this deck still does run Fencing Ace, so that's a possibility.
I think he'll bring in the Pillars because it's Bant Hexproof. Most versions, or many versions, also have the Silverblade Paladin, and Pillars are a perfectly fine answer against that as well. So.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, on Daniel's side of the board, if Caleb's bringing in a whole bunch of elimination, I think that Daniel's probably bringing in Rootborn Defenses, would be my guess.
Yeah.
I would also be surprised if Strangleroot Geist didn't make an appearance. Another Voice of Resurgence style creature that has 2 bodies attached. Much more aggressive version, of course, but perfectly serviceable. And I would expect that to be about it for Daniel to be bringing in.
What do you take out if you're Daniel?
From Daniel? You know, you have to keep in Loxodon Smiter. Smiter is insanely powerful against Jund, particularly Caleb's version because of those Lilianas. You have to keep in, you're going to keep in your Invisible Stalkers, you're going to keep in your Geist of St. Traps. We'll just skip over that. You probably have to keep in your Pilgrims just for the turn 2 Geist of St. Traps possibility.
Yeah, not a lot of wiggle room with this deck.
No, it's basically a combo deck that you can't, there isn't a whole ton to shave. The things you're going to shave are things like the 2 Fencing Ace. So I would expect those 2 Fencing Ace to come out, and at least 2 of the Strangleroot Geist to come in. The spells we have: Spectral Flight, Ethereal Armor, Rancor, and Unflinching Courage, the 4/4-ofs there. Those are very difficult to replace. I would not expect any of them to come out. The cards that you can take out that are spells are the 1 Simic Charm and the 1 Celestia Charm. Now, those are tricky because they have very powerful modes attached to them. If I say, all right, I'm going to Dreadbore, or I'm going to Pillar of Flame your Voice, and you say, not so fast, Simic Charm, Hexproof my team. Or, +2/+2, my guy. That's a very powerful thing to be able to do. So I think that Daniel needs to weigh which cards he thinks are going to be most efficient in this matchup. The problem being, Jund can be built any number of ways. So it's going to be difficult for Daniel to be able to pick out.
And Caleb's got some easy cuts here. He's got a couple of singletons that are meant for other matchups. Ground Seal, Rakdos's Return, Sever the Bloodline even. Not really fantastic in this
I'd
matchup.
expect Dreadbore to hit the sidelines as well.
Yeah.
Tragic Slip probably stays in. Mizia Mortar's just the same because he's seen locks it on Smiter already. He wants an answer for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's an answer if you get up to 6.
If you get up to 6, which is not terribly difficult in Caleb's deck with all of the Farseeks and the 5th Farseek in Rakdos Key Rune.
You said 5th Farseek there, and you almost gave me a heart attack, Ruben.
No, he doesn't have an actual 5th Farseek. He doesn't have an actual 5th Farseek.
Okay.
He has 4 Farseeks and a 5th quote-unquote Farseek.
They can't see that.
I was making hand quotes.
Okay.
Folks at home.
Big ones, too.
Big hand
Taking
quotes.
up the whole booth here.
Wild.
All right, here we go.
Terribly inefficient.
Caleb Durward playing Jund took game 1 here on the back of a very timely Bonfire of the Damned for 4, taking out a Loxodon Smiter.
Yeah, that had just picked up a Rancor also.
And these players undefeated up to this point, 7-0.
Yep. I was watching Daniel Jackson's match last round. He was up against a red-green aggro player, and he was on the back foot, but managed to come back in the one game that I was watching. Actually very practiced pilot. I was pretty impressed with his play. It looks like Daniel has also brought in Negate. Not terribly surprising considering the power of the cards available to Caleb, such as Liliana and Garrett Primal Hunter. But he is going to have to take a mulligan. As you see Jerry Thompson in the background there behind Daniel. He is one of our other feature matches. I believe he's paired up against Eric Rill this round, 2-time Star City Games Open champion as well. Caleb is going to keep his opening 7. He's going to calmly take a sip of his beverage there and wait for his opponent. Bant Hexproof isn't exactly the best mulliganing deck I've ever seen.
It has no way to recover that card advantage.
Yeah,
and like you said, it's a combo deck, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And you need very specific pieces. You need lands. You need a resilient creature.
Yeah.
Preferably Invisible Stalker or Geist of St. Traft. And you also need things to make that creature even better than it is.
And you need the right one too. We saw in that game 1, Daniel had the Rancor, which pushed damage through, but didn't really help when Caleb just spat out a bunch of blockers.
If that Rancor had been a Spectral Procession, Daniel would have won that first game easily.
Yeah. Spectral Flight or
Spectral
Ethereal
Flight,
Armor,
not Spectral Procession, sorry.
Ethereal Armor even giving first strike.
Absolutely.
Could have changed the math there.
Even Unflinching Courage would have been able to take out one of the Huntmaster, forced Caleb to make a tough decision. 2-for-1 himself, basically.
Yeah.
Give up one of the Huntmasters, and also give 4 more points of life to Daniel Jackson. The Rancor, not pumping the toughness, was a huge detriment there.
It's weird to think that Rancor has a detriment. This is a card, when it was first printed, I think it may have even been a misprint at some point, or a miscommunication where the card was supposed to cost 2 or 3 mana.
Certainly, it was the most powerful of the cycle by far. There were many, I believe there's an entire cycle of commons, auras from Urza's Legacy that return to their controller's hand. But most of them were things like slow motion. There were 3 mana that made your opponent pay 2 mana to keep their creature around. Not very powerful spells. Rancor is the only one that's even close to seeing play these days.
So Daniel's gone down to 5 cards here.
He has found himself a hand that has lands and creatures in it. Let's see if he can top deck some spells to make that Invisible Stalker slightly better. Meanwhile, Caleb has found lands and spells, as Jund is wont to do. He's got many ways to deal with things like Voice of Resurgence. As you can see, a pair of Pillar of Flames in his hand.
Attack for 1 with Avacyn Spoken. That is not what this deck wants to be.
Not really, no. But if it means that we're playing an Invisible Stalker, then that's what it means. That's what we got to do, I guess. Caleb is not going to have a turn 1 Farseek. Ooh, and this Duress is going to show a pair of lands.
So the Duress misses, but I think it's a good miss for Caleb.
Yes.
Because it means that there's no auras there. The Invisible Stalker is only going to chip away for 1 point at a time.
Caleb also has Abrupt Decay in his hand, very powerful answer for Unflinching Courage or Spectral Flight. going to play another come into play tapped land.
And now here, that mulligan. Those
Really,
mulligans.
Yeah, really coming back to haunt Daniel as he only attacks for 2 here, drawing another land. 6 lands and 2 spells, not exactly what Dan wants here.
No, he needed an aura. He needed to suit up that invisible stalker.
But he's still in this game. He can very easily just top deck 3 running auras, or 2 running auras even, as we see the
there's
first
one of them.
So now we have a clock, a full-on actual clock. We have Spectral Flight for our invisible stalker.
And it's very relevant that it pumps the toughness here. It makes it a 3/3, staying ahead of a potential bonfire miracle.
Yep. Second Abrupt Decay probably means that this invisible stalker is going to lose that particular aura this coming combat step. But Caleb's got to be careful because Daniel has Cynic Charm in his deck, which gives permanence hexproof, not just his creatures, all permanents.
Very nice.
But instead he top decks Strangleroot Geist. Strangleroot Geist is still going to be able to help Daniel deal 3 damage to Caleb.
Now the invisible stalker back down to a manageable bonfire level.
Yep. But Bonfire's still not exactly what Caleb wants to answer here because he's got the Strangleroot Geist in play. I think Caleb would much rather have just a resilient threat hit the board, something like Huntmaster of the Fells, to just put a presence on the board, maybe trade the Wolf for the first half of Strangleroot Geist, or just Pillar of Flame on the Strangleroot Geist, get rid of it permanently.
A Pillar the Strangleroot here, and he's building up to overloaded Mizium Mortars that can take care of the invisible stalker.
And there's an Unflinching Courage. That's going to go on the invisible stalker, making it a 3/3. Caleb's going to drop to 11. Daniel's going to go up to 21. But Caleb's still going to be well in the lead because he has Abrupt Decay to be able to prevent that life loss and the gain. He also has Mizium Mortars in his hand, should he so choose to use it for its overload once he gets to 6 mana. In the meantime, going up for 5 more life with Ragtusk.
Slamming down that Ragtusk. I thought Caleb might consider letting the invisible stalker hit once, just to see if he would draw the land for the Mizium Mortars overload. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Didn't want to take any chances there, and he did not draw the 6th land, so going with a much safer line of play.
Yep. Caleb deciding if he wants to attack with the Thragtusk. He's going to see another land before he does it.
Yeah, he should have known about that, right?
I believe that Daniel played both of the lands that Caleb saw, so coast is clear. We're going to start racing. Voice of Resurgence is going to become a 2/2 everybody token. It's an everybody token. It counts everybody.
Okay.
It's a party animal, is what it is.
It is a party animal.
It's going to be a 2/2.
Party elemental.
Party elemental. And everybody's invited. Daniel's going to top deck a negate. Well, that wasn't going to help him against those Abrupt Decays anyway. And he probably didn't want to counter those duresses. So if you're going to draw that, that's an okay time to draw it. I think he would have much rather drawn a threat, preferably another Strangleroot Geist at that point. Perhaps even an Unflinching Courage.
Unflinching Courage.
So Daniel's going to get in for 3, drop Caleb to 11. Caleb's going to be well in the lead of this particular race. And that is a Liliana of the Veil, in addition to our overloaded Mizium Mortars, which is met by negate. Caleb gave him a draw step. Daniel had the draw step and used it well to be able to counter the giant Wrath effect.
So Daniel's going to deal 3 here, 8, 5.
No, Caleb's winning this race.
Yeah.
So far. Daniel has a couple ways to flip the script, though.
No, he decides to just scoop the drill.
That's it.
I wouldn't have scooped there.
I probably wouldn't have scooped there. He had a couple other top decks, but Caleb was going to be able to drop a Liliana there.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Maybe Daniel just saw the writing on the wall and decided